Hi, welcome. Today I am outside, so you may hear some birds and some other sounds coming through. I don't know how this is gonna go because I'm used to recording inside, but today I want to talk a little bit about the books that I have read during the month of May. The first one that I finished is one that I've been reading for quite some time. It's The Histories by Herodotus, I don't know, translated by Tom Holland. And I really enjoyed the first third of this book. And then it became a little bit harder to get through. It is very long, but I do want to mention that it is accessible and fairly easy to read. It could be the translation, I don't know, but I didn't find it too difficult. Before going in, I really thought I would be having a hard time with this, but I did not. It's just, yes, a very big book. The first half, in my opinion, information-wise, was much more interesting to me, but of course this is very subjective. This has been such an important work that I think every reader should have read the histories. To give you an idea, here is a section that I marked about the Babylonians. Rather than consult a doctor, the Babylonians will instead carry anyone who has fallen ill into the city's main square, where passers-by will give him tips on his ailment, drawn either from personal experience of the sufferer's symptoms or else from having observed the symptoms in others. Whether the passerby was himself cured of a similar disease or studied someone else who had been a patient and had recovered, he will be sure to offer prescriptions and remedies. To walk past an invalid in silence without asking him what illness he has is forbidden. So yes, little bits and pieces of history. Next, I have finished Stephen Fry's Odyssey, and I was really debating whether or not I would read the original, the Odyssey, again, or do the version of Stephen Fry, but I went for Stephen Fry's because it has been, I think, if I'm correct, 2 years since I've read the Odyssey, and I didn't feel quite ready to reread it again. So yes, it was a great way to return to the story. I don't know how I should feel about the movie coming out. I did want to read this before the movie comes in, I think, July. But yes, I highly recommend the series by Stephen Fry, Mythos, Troy, Heroes, and then Odyssey Part 4. It was really good. Then I have read, yes I did, Marquis de Sade, and this is a collection of short stories. The first short story was called Miss Henrietta Strolson. This is about a man who becomes obsessed with a young lady who is of course the most beautiful lady in England. He starts following her around and he comes up with a plan to have her abducted. The entire city somehow works along with him to set up all kinds of plans for him to succeed in abducting her, and he succeeds fairly soon in the short story. And all I want to say without spoiling it is that she is so good with words. She always manipulates him. And this felt somehow like a Greek tragedy because it felt very dramatic and bloody. And yes, I really enjoyed reading this. I also read the first essay that the Sade wrote in this collection, which is an essay on novels. And there is something he says that I really want to share with you. A man learns nothing when he talks. He learns by listening, which is why those who talk the most are, in the ordinary run of things, fools. Anyway, next read that I finished is This is Life by Christoph Galfard. And this was an advanced reader's copy because I went to an event for work and the publishing company gave me a copy. This is a science book about how we as human beings came into the world. And we start from the very beginning. The author takes us on a journey through time. I first thought that I would find this difficult to read, but it's such an accessible, easy to read book, very interesting, very informative, very well written, and I highly recommend this if you want to get into more science. Then for my PNP book club, we read Sophocles this month, and we went for Antigone, Oedipus the King, and Electra. I really enjoyed all three of these, but I would say that Oedipus the King, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that one was my favorite from the three. I think you could read them without any background knowledge, but I think it's handy if you have read Homer's work, because having read the Iliad and the Odyssey will give you a more complete view, in my opinion. I may make a separate video about this. If you're interested, do let me know in the comments and maybe I will make one. Then I also read the short stories by Thomas Hardy, Wessex Tales. I love Thomas Hardy's works so much, and I had never read any of his short stories, so this was a great experience. I really enjoyed these. They give you Thomas Hardy as you know him. The drama, the family issues, the love issues, you know, everything that Hardy stands for is here, which also means that this is a great introduction if you haven't read Thomas Hardy yet. I think these stories will give you a perfect idea of Thomas Hardy's writing style, his feel for drama, and his stories that are often very depressing. One thing that I really want to mention is how surprised I was by these strong female characters who just made up their own minds. It is very modern. They just really challenged the time they were living in, and I really love how Hardy wrote those women. And then there are two more works that I read digitally, so I will check the names of them. The first one was On the Suffering of the World by Schopenhauer, the philosopher. I know it wasn't his intention, but it was just so funny because his worldview was so extremely pessimistic, and it was so depressing to read that I constantly burst out laughing. I know it wasn't his intention. I know there may be something wrong with me, but I found it so funny. He might just become my favorite philosopher, and I don't know if that's a good thing. Just to give one example, he states that if humans were made by an almighty being, then he made us to pay for our sins, because why else would we suffer so much in this life? Now, I definitely am going to read more Schopenhauer, and the last one I finished this month was The Twilight of the Idols by Friedrich Nietzsche. In this work, I cannot say that I vibe with Nietzsche. I really wanted to get into his works, and this apparently was a good starting point. Now, he brings down so many authors. He criticizes everything and everyone to the point where you start wondering if this man ever admired anyone. He also states that his country, Germany, is unsophisticated, decadent, nihilistic. I do think I will continue, but I have to say that I disagreed with so many things, and he may not be, like Shoppy, my kind of philosopher, but we'll see. I'm just going to continue my journey. I'm going to enjoy the lovely weather with my books today in a nice spot in the shadow, and I am wishing you a lovely day as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.